now take you to the broadcast of It's Time with Reverend Nathaniel W. Martin. Here is Reverend Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Blackwell. Let me say good morning, good afternoon, good evening, but certainly never good night and never ever goodbye, because I hate goodbyes, but then that's because of personal trauma. My name is Reverend Nathaniel W. Martin. I'm the pastor of the New Life Institutional Baptist Church here in the glorious city of Los Angeles, California, where we are beginning to recover from the plague of the pandemic, as are all of you, I trust, and all of us as a nation as a whole. We're located at 8916 South Main Street here in Los Angeles, as I said before, and we are worshiping in the building, in the structure, with our sister congregation, sister church, the Shiloh Missionary Christian Church, who have been nice enough to say, why don't you come on in here, Pastor Martin, and worship with us. We will grow together. We've been growing and fellowshipping, and it is a beautiful fellowship, and I'm just excited and on tiptoe anticipation to see what the Lord is going to do for us going forward. I think I did mention that the pastor of the Shiloh Missionary Christian Church is my good friend, the Reverend Dr. Della F. Hollerness, and we invite you to come and worship with us at any and all of our services on Sundays from 10 a.m., Wednesdays 7 p.m. for prayer meeting, and Sunday night is evangelistic night, and more or less a free-for-all. And you're welcome to come and worship with us at any and all of our services. We never closed down. We trusted God, and we kept pushing. We masked up, and we hand sanitized up, and we spaced out, and just kept on moving, because somebody got to keep the light on in the church house. It doesn't look good for the light to be out in the church, and for too long, too many of us have fallen prey to the convenience of hiding behind the excuse of the virus to fail to fulfill our duties, not only in the clergy, but also as fellow members. It's time to shake off this darkness, shake off this fear, shake off this dark night, and get up and get back in, be about God's business. I'm praying for all of our churches all over this country, indeed around the world, because we've all been impacted adversely by this great plague. If it hasn't hit our family, it has hit so many of our friends. And as you know, in most of our states, you cannot any longer visit in the rest homes and to see how members, friends, family are doing, and you can only get FaceTime, and so it would be good to get a chance to get back into those facilities, those institutions, and pray and with the people in those rest homes. I know they will be glad to see somebody come by and see about them. And not only that, it works a hardship on families and friends who have loved ones in the hospitals that don't allow you to come in and visit. And so the more of us that receive our vaccination and that adhere to the policies going forward, I see a great turning around within the next year and a half. God bless you. This offering which you are viewing or listening to, whichever choice you may choose. Sometimes I have the video on, but I'll be working, let you just listen to it by audio. But this offering is entitled, It's Time. And you say, what is it time for? Well, it is time for social justice. It is time to be an advocate for our brothers and our sisters in this country and around the world who have been left out, pushed out, and ejected or rejected or not allowed to share in the great bounty of this country and the great bounty of this world. Amen. And so we know about the health disparities. The health disparities are because of the social disparities. The social disparities are because of the inherent systemic racism that has permeated every aspect, every category of American life, and indeed since 1492 life around the continent and the globe. All right, let me quickly read our reparations text, which if you would like to read along with me, can be found in Deuteronomy chapter 15. We pick up our reading at verse number 12. And this is what it says: "And if thy brother, an Hebrew man or an Hebrew woman, be sold unto thee and serve thee 6 years, then in the 7th year thou shalt let them go free from thee. And," this is the kicker, "when thou sendest him or her out free from thee, thou shalt not let them go away empty, but thou shalt liberally furnish them out of thy flock, and out of thy floor, and out of thy winepress, of that wherewith the Lord thy God hath blessed thee, thou shalt give." Don't sell, don't loan, don't lease, don't rent, but thou shalt give liberally unto them. So even God was concerned that when the slaves were freed, that they would not go out penniless, hopeless, jobless, houseless, homeless, unhoused, as the case may be, and with no hope going forward that they had when they originally came to you, which is the case from slavery, in slavery. And unfortunately, it is the case of most of our children coming out of foster care, and it is the case of most of our people returning from a confinement in our prisons and jail wards. And that, my brothers and my sisters, is something that has to be redressed and dealt with and repaired and improved. I believe that it is time for beginning applications of transformative justice, and as such, we who say that we are children of God, and dare I say it, those of us who claim to be Christians, that we need to walk worthy of the vocation wherewith we are called, knowing that we too shall be called to give an account. What would it look like when Jesus says, "I was hungry and you left me hungry, and I was naked and you laughed at me. I was outdoors and you closed the blinds and went on about your business." And that is what is happening in too many of our municipalities and cities and metropolises around this country and around this world. Yes, reparations is still mandatory. Reparation is still the cry. The former enslavers were repaid handsomely for the loss of their so-called quote-unquote property in slavery, in human bondage. But the slave themselves have yet to be compensated for their 246 years of unrequited toil given here in this great country alone, let alone around the world. As you study history and look into the sociology of how things have transpired, you find that even France demanded of Haiti, even after Haiti had defeated France and had finally won the war, through the militant campaigns of Toussaint Louverture, but yet the French ringed the tiny island of Haiti with their warships after they had signed the armistice or the treaty, and demanded that Haiti pay them, France, for the loss of their property, for the loss of their income. And if they failed to pay, that they would begin firing on the port cities of poor Haiti. And thus Haiti had to, even they had won the war, they were forced to pay France, over whom they had been victorious, in order not to resume the war again. They were forced to pay France 40 million francs and then another 135 million francs, and they did not finish paying that until the year of 1947. And the Louisiana Purchase, as you know, was way back there in the 1850s, which would have been around the time, and some years earlier, of the Haitian Revolution. And so don't say that we don't pay reparation. We've always paid reparation. Britain paid reparation to the financiers of the slave owners, and they made the taxpayers of Great Britain pay those former slave owners for the loss of their slaves, for the end of slavery. And it took them 180 years, and they only finished paying that debt off in 2015, which was not that long ago. But yet when it comes to the slaves themselves, yet when it comes to those who everybody says you got to work hard, and if you work hard, you'll win and you'll get what you want and you get what you deserve, or all of these type of things. And the slaves can look at you and say, now, working hard would do it. I ought to be a 2 or 3 time millionaire by right now. But that was not the case. Whether they were on the Port Royal or the island of Paris or the island of Hilton or the island of Edisto, those South Carolina islands, you know what you're talking about historically. Even after General Sherman's article, Field Order number 15, they were still compelled to get off of that property and give that land back to their former enslavers, and they in turn were forced into sharecropping and penury for a great many of us, and because of Andrew Johnson's evil machination, who became president following the assassination of our beloved Abraham Lincoln. And so it is not that the nation has not paid reparation. They just paid reparation the wrong way. They paid reparation to the enslavers, and they told the enslaved, get out of here, you're getting a dime. And you had to root hog or die pull yourself up by your bootstraps, even though you had no boots and no strap. And so that has been the history. And one of the things I want to bring your attention to at this moment is the fact that Evanston, Illinois, which is about 11 or 14 miles by automobile from Chicago, has done what no other state or county in the United States has been able so far to do. As you know, Congressman John Conyers from Michigan, almost up until the day that he died, was continuously introducing Resolution H.R. 40 to study the effects and the consequences of slavery upon the formerly enslaved and their descendants, and it was constantly voted down. And by some rules there, when President Barack Obama was the president, well, it wasn't even presented in the Congress at any time. until later in his administration. because he felt that it would offend the white supremacists and would aggravate their resentment, and he wouldn't be able to get anything accomplished. But I don't feel that a black president should be exempt from fighting against racism any more than the white presidents were allowed to get a pass on fighting for social equity and at that time racial justice or racial equality, which we still need in volumes here in this nation. But to my point, Evanston, Illinois, Councilwoman Robin Rue Simmons, who grew up in Evanston, and has put in and has had passed a resolution that is the first in the nation to offer reparations to black people. And this reparation is based upon the systemic racist nature of the housing that the early black residents and migrants to Evanston, Illinois encountered. Evanston, Illinois was founded in 1863, which was the same year that the Emancipation Proclamation was signed. But they early decided that they would limit the influx of the Negroes into their city, and that they would keep them in one geographical area. That geographical area became known as the Fifth Ward, and that's where Miss Simmons, this councilwoman we're talking about, was born. And if you know the history of the United States, the history of Evanston, Illinois, is very little different. By 1919, they had put in restrictive covenants. They knew where most of the black people, Negroes, colored people, whatever you want to call them, were living or were confined. And they had decided on disinvestment in that area where the black people lived. It was not majority black, it was all black. And the white power structure decided that there would be no investment in what became known as the Fifth Ward. Well, even now, there is no public school in the Fifth Ward. And under this investment, that means that there are no parks, no public schools, no public playgrounds, no grocery stores, no banks, and I'm missing something, but you get the picture. Everything you had to get to live, you had to go out of the Fifth Ward to get it, and then bring it back. I wish I had a witness. And so that was the condition. And I forgot to mention the horrible way in which blacks were not allowed to buy where they wanted to buy. You might have the money to buy, but they did not allow you to get a loan or to qualify for no mortgage company. No banks would make loans to any black person if they wanted to buy outside of the Fifth Ward. And so and through restrictive covenants, that means a restrictive covenant says that if I was a white person and I lived in the other portions of Evanston, not in the Fifth Ward, that I would only sell my house to another white person. That's what you call a restrictive covenant. And of course, those were not declared illegal until 1948. And that case was brought itself by Thurgood Marshall during those years. But to the point in which I'm stressing, you can see that from 1919 all the way through the passage of the Fair Housing Act. Remember, before it became the Fair Housing Administration, it was just the Federal Housing Administration, and it itself used the redlining codes so that the federal government itself would not invest in any area, any geographical location that was a majority a Negro, as they called it at that time, we would call it at the time, Negro or colored area of any municipality. That was a no-no. It was a federal law. It was de jure. It was not de facto. It was actually de jure. So here we come. As we said, this wonderful councilwoman named Robin Rue Simmons was able in 2019 to pass what became known as Resolution 126R19. And what it stated was that the city of Evanston would provide reparation in the form of small loans, or small of up to $25,000 per person, to people who could prove that they were actually discriminated against in between that period from 1919 through 1969. And they're calling it the Reparations Bill. It is the first one to bear that name. Notice it's not much. It's a very minute, very small, doesn't even begin to address the larger economic and social inequities that the wealth gap brings. You remember last week we talked about the Bruce's Beach in Manhattan Beach, California, where the black people will run out of the land through eminent domain, and only this year, in other words, from 1924 until 2021, they decide the city government of Manhattan Beach decided to give that portion of land back to the Bruce family. But how much wealth has been lost in the intervening years? And the same in the city of Evanston, Illinois. How much wealth were Negroes or blacks or colors, whatever you call it, denied, and how much wealth did they lose or fail to accumulate that they could pass on to their children and their grandchildren by being redlined? Because you know that the housing in the Fifth Ward was undervalued. But if they had been able to buy in where they wanted to buy and where they had the money to buy, but were blocked and restricted because the mortgage system, the banking system, and the federal system were against them, so they were not able to buy in those more affluent type areas. How much wealth, therefore, was lost? How much collective wealth failed to be realized? But hats off to Ms. Simmons, and we find that even the former President Barack Obama gave a very lukewarm, as it were, response to reparations. He did say that theoretically, if you ask me theoretically, should we be paid reparations? And he would say yes. Let me give you his word. Theoretically, are reparations justified? Remember, theoretically, are reparations justified? And he said he would say yes, theoretically. Now you come to the hard part, which is the practical, the literal, and the actual program that will dispense or provide for the reparation. But I say it's not a theoretical necessity. It is a moral imperative. Help me, Holy Ghost. It is a moral imperative that reparations be paid to the descendants of the slaves, because you paid the enslavers, but you did not pay the enslaved. Then you have failed in your duty, because really you take that money from the enslavers and give that money to the enslaved, because they were the ones who actually did the toil. You see the difference? The people that didn't work got paid. The people who actually worked got put off the land. You see, got nothing. You work hard, you get nothing. You don't work hard, you get everything. That's the way that's the way it has worked out. And so we must continue, renew our fight. It says here that there must be a makeup for a lack of generational wealth and systemic racism. And I heartily agree. And got my 5 minutes, y'all. That's what that man walks up there with a 5-minute sign there. Means start wrapping it up. And so, but at least that was the main point. There is a recognition in Evanston, Illinois, that there was a wrong done. Now, they're not addressing the 246 years of slavery, but they are starting to address the denial of loans and the denial of the opportunity to have the God-given right as a taxpayer to have an opportunity to buy where they wanted to buy. There never should have been such a thing as systemic racism, but there is, and we're still battling it all across this land. It's ironic that not only are we blacks hesitant about getting the COVID-19 vaccine, but that we also are the ones that are dying and the most susceptible to contracting the coronavirus. And so it looks like some of us are playing into the hands of our enemy by not being vaccinated. I just throw that out because you got to make your own decision. But I would that we would weigh everything, and as we get ready to make this decision. I'm supposed to get my second vaccine on the 19th of this month, and I thank God for the opportunity to be vaccinated. Now, I know about the medical and the health disparities, and I know how we were done with the Tuskegee experiment, how they let all the men of that experiment walk around with syphilis and would not treat them, even though they knew that penicillin would have knocked it out right like that. But they had a cold-blooded clinical detachment to watch those men die, and just clinically and cold-bloodedly record the decline in health. And then, of course, we know about Marion Sims and how he used the the black slave women, in development of his gynecological instruments, speculum, and all that type of thing. And also we know that when we go to the hospital, we're less, even though we have the same insurance and we may be paying a higher premium, we got all of that Anthem and Blue Cross and Blue Shield, but we still have a more adverse outcome, even though we go to the same hospital, same insurance, get the same doctor, different outcome. Something ain't right, y'all. And so we call that social medical disparities, and one is following upon the other. And you must not play into the hands of the system. You must at all times stand up and resist, and do not go quietly, as they say, into that dark night. All right. Remember to pray for our first line workers, whether they're truck drivers or meat packers or grocery store shelf stackers or replacers, whatever the names or titles are. Now, we all need to pray much for each other. We will get reparation. It's just not going to happen in my lifetime, but it is beginning. You must be faithful. You're preparing not just for yourself, but for your generation yet to come, your generations yet unborn. We must leave them a guide. We must lead them a plan and a path forward. So now, be not weary in well-doing. Don't worry about the fact that you may not be able to enjoy all of this in your lifetime. our slave foreparents did not enjoy what you were enjoying, but they prayed that you might enjoy it. So as you are getting up a little long in the tooth, you got more. You got more years behind you than you have before you. Remember, you must leave something behind for those that are coming behind you, for your succeeding generation. May not have said that as it should, but you understand what I mean. Again, keep each other lifted up in prayer. And as we say it always, if you're working on these thankless, pointless jobs where they don't even want to pay you $15 an hour, and God knows the cost of living is beyond that. And they don't want to give you full time, they don't want to make you permanent, they want you to be part time, and they don't want you to give you any regular hours, they want you to be on call for any time they call you, here you come running. Those people are saying that they don't value your work, they don't value your labor, they don't value you. And why would you work for somebody that don't care nothing about you? So if you get the first opportunity you get, tell those people, if you don't want to pay me, then I ain't going to work for you. God bless you. Thank you, Doc. We're out of here.